And welcome back to Ladies Can We Talk. We're in our second hour roundtable. I'm joined tonight by Jenny McGarry and Dorinda Randall, and I believe we have on the line a guest on the line named Katie Kieffer. Hello, Katie.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Oh, we're happy to do it. Katie is the author of a book, which is, I have my iPad, and it's a book called Let Me Be Clear, Barack Obama's War on Millennials and One Woman's Case for Hope. So Katie, as you can tell by her young voice, is a young millennial who's written a book about how Obama's policies are not so great for millennials. You're also a town hall columnist, and so I so appreciate you wrote this book. So tell me what inspired you to write the book.
Well, I am inspired by my generation, which is 95 million strong. We're the largest cohort of Americans in this country, even larger than the baby boomers, and yet we're the first generation of Americans to do worse both financially and culturally in comparison to our parents. So that's a historic downfall for our country. And I wanted to turn Barack Obama's famous catchphrase, "Let me be clear," against him and to offer some solutions and education to my peers that they are not getting in school. And in each chapter I show how Barack Obama, as well as Hillary Clinton, are very different from previous Democrats such as JFK and even Bill Clinton, who ruled much more moderately in comparison to these more radical, socialistic Democrats that we have now, and it's important that young people get this information before they go out there and vote.
I think it's fabulous, and I did notice your repeated references back and starting chapters discussing what JFK did and his conduct and Clinton did. But, you know, it's a really interesting thing because you're talking about President Obama, and of course I agree with all your views on that, but he's really been persuasive in luring millennials to support him. So why do you think that is?
Well, young people, I have not been, I don't think this generation is naturally inclined to be beggars, let's say. The reason why they're drawn to people like Barack Obama and now Hillary as well as Bernie Sanders is because they feel like there is no hope for achieving the American dream. Harvard recently did a study showing that the vast majority of millennials think that the American dream is out of reach. And so when these people start promising things, particularly free college, free housing, and jobs, young people start to listen because the fact of the matter is there really aren't any opportunities out there for them, and they don't realize because they haven't been educated properly in school that it's in fact these particular politicians' policies that have caused this problem.
Exactly. I'm so glad you said that. The opportunity isn't there because of the people they're voting for.
Katie, this is Jenny McGarry. I have a quick question. How do you feel that the lack of home ownership among the millennials or property ownership being a priority has changed how they view America?
That's a great question. I have one chapter completely dedicated to housing. I have a background in commercial real estate myself, and I titled that chapter the new shacking up, because we have a situation now where 1 in 3 millennials is living mostly at home with their parents or with roommates, not because they want to or because their parents want them there, but out of financial necessity. So most of these young people actually, when they're polled, they say they want to move into a house someday. They do say they want to get married and have children. However, they're just simply not able to do that. And what I see happening down the road, if young people don't wake up and get smart about this, is that politicians such as Hillary Clinton are going to use housing as a way to buy votes, because the millennial generation is getting a little bit older this time around. Many of them have voted already in 2 presidential elections, and there's actually 9,000 babies being born every day in the United States just to millennial parents. So you have a cohort of young people who are just itching to get into their own place. It's not an apartment and not mom and dad's basement. And so you're going to start to see politicians really pander on that policy, but what I do is I explain that that's how Bill Clinton bought votes, and that's how he sold, especially minorities and Hispanics, basically a lie and caused them to go into foreclosure in many cases. So I think it is important to educate young people on that issue.
Katie, this is Dorinda, and I had a question for you. When it comes to speaking to your peers, how do you communicate with them? Because I know for some of them, the beauty of the Democrat talking points is they're very small. War on women, pay your fair share, you're a racist, you're a bigot, all of those fun things. How do you communicate with them to where they hear you out?
Yeah, that's a great question, too. I focus a lot of the time on entrepreneurship and talking about how our policies, conservative, libertarian, free market, are going to get them to be able to become entrepreneurs, because Deloitte recently did a study, and they found that 70% of millennials say that someday they aspire to be independent and work for themselves. A lot of them are techies. A lot of them really do want to be the next Steve Jobs or Mark Zuckerberg, but on a small scale. And so I think instead of talking about capitalism, for example, we should talk about this capitalism, but not use that word. Use words like entrepreneurship, words like local, authentic, transparent.
Those are good choices.
They are good words. Yeah. You know, Kate, we're speaking with Katie Kieffer tonight, who has a book out called Let Me Be Clear, Barack Obama's War on Millennials and One Woman's Case for Hope. I have to tell you, when I saw Let Me Be Clear, I knew why you picked that title. It's so darn funny to kind of mock him. But, you know, and Katie's book, I want to be sure we give adequate time. She has chapters on the economy, on Obamacare, on just the idea of higher education, housing, why fathers matter. She has a chapter called Steamrolling the Foxholes. Clever chapter names, by the way, really clever chapter names. And the foxhole one is about the military and the way different people are treated. So it really is has a lot of depth and breadth to the book. And so I love that you wrote it. I love that you're saying that millennials need to, are not getting a good shake, a good deal out of the Obama economy, but not just the economy, the whole worldview he has. So you're really arguing not just against Obama, but the whole kind of left-wing worldview, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And as you mentioned, there's a chapter in there titled Why Fathers Matter, and I talk about the role models that this administration put up in front of our young people, particularly our African-American youth, as well as our young women. And they put forth role models such as Beyonce or Jay-Z, people who are rapping about getting high on cocaine. And at the same time that Barack Obama is putting up these role models, there's an uptick in young people dying of cocaine. He's inviting these young people to all of his rallies. He's teaching young women that the best way to be successful is to strip down as much as you can and to shake your booty. And that's absolutely not true. And so I think he sold young people short, not just in terms of his policies, but he gets too much credit for being a great family guy because, his nuclear family looks great, but if you look at the way that he reached out to all of our children and the role models that he put out for the interviews he gave to places like Rolling Stone and the people that he said were great entrepreneurs, they were in fact thugs. So that misled our young people.
Yeah, so we're speaking with Katie Kieffer, again, the author of this book, which I have on my iPad. It's obviously available. It's available on Amazon, right?
Yeah, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Apple.
Yeah, Katie, and she speaks. She has a column at Town Hall. She's quite often on Fox News and other stations being interviewed, television and radio. So are you trying to start, we have 30 seconds here. Are you trying to do some public speaking about that? If people want to reach out to you, how would they get to you?
Sure. They can visit my website at Katie Kieffer, KatieKieffer.com, and just send me an email through my contact form there if they're interested in having me speak.
Okay, I'm so glad you wrote a book to young people, millennials, telling them shape up and stop voting for big government and for all the left stands for. Katie Kieffer, thanks so much for calling in.
Thanks so much for having me.